Welcome back, everyone, to Ask the Expert, and we come international again. We have Dr. Irène Kilubi all the way from Europe, and she specializes in something that I think is timeless. It's branding, building communities, and the question will be today how you build a community when you don't have the chance to be interacting, to be networking, everything is virtual. Doctor, thank you very much for being with us, and tell us why you're an expert and where you are located today.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me. Well, I have a business engineering background. I used to work for BMW for several years. Then I went to Siemens in the in-house consultancy. And afterwards, I worked at Deloitte and supported many large corporations, mainly in the banking and finance industry, in their digital transformation. And since 4 years now, I've been entering the startup scene, working a lot with accelerators, startups, and with universities. So I'm pretty much involved in this ecosystem, and I support pioneers, change makers, and everyone who's a visionary in their personal branding and community building, as well as social selling. Well, what I do, in fact, is to position people who want to make themselves visible online as thought leaders and experts, and support them also to grow a followership based on their community, and lastly, to sell their products and services without spending too much money on ads.
How you build a community? What is the first step in order to build a community of followers?
Yes, in fact, to build a community, you need to be a brand, right? If we're talking about a person, it's his personal brand. And he has to ask himself the question, what do I want to be known for, right? So if we look at celebrities or famous entrepreneurs, they all stand for something. If we look, for example, at Richard Branson, he says for himself, like, he wants to learn during his journey and wants to have fun and be passionate about everything he does. Or Oprah says, like, she wants to be a teacher, she wants to be inspiring to other people, right? And when we talk about entrepreneurs like Mark Zuckerberg or Arianna Huffington or Elon Musk, we have to ask ourselves the question, what do all these entrepreneurs have in common?
And what is that?
Yes, in fact, they are not only a pro in their industry, meaning that they have built a strong and consistent brand, but more importantly, they have built a strong community of followers, supporters, and fans. That's what makes them, in fact, stand out.
So now that you become a brand, we have the definition why you need to be a brand before to build a community. What is building a community and how you apply it onto their reality?
Mm-hmm. In fact, there's a so-called community building canvas. It's pretty famous. There were three guys, one from Germany, two from America, who built it up. We can also find it online. Their approach is very straightforward. That they say, in order to have a great foundation to build a community, you have to cover, in fact, three different elements, which are, first of all, identity. Secondly, you have experiences. And thirdly, you have the structure. So if you look at the identity part, it means that I have to be clear about my purpose, about my mission, about my brand message. I need to be clear how will people recognize me? Why do, in fact, people want to join my community? I have to give them a reason to do so. And of course, also my values are important here. For what kind of values do I stand for? And lastly, how do I, in fact, define the success of my community? Is it based on the number of followership? Is it based on the commitment that they have? And so on. So the second part is also the experience part, which is so much important because we're dealing with human beings here, with people here. So what kind of shared experiences do they have? Do they share common stories, backgrounds? Then I have to define what kind of rules do I need to have within my community. How can people enter my community? How can they leave my community? Do I have certain rituals? with rituals, it's meant like, do I have regular events or meetings? How do I share content with my community? And then the last part to build the strategic foundation is the structure. So how do I want to organize my community? How is it governed? What kind of channels and platforms do I use on social media to interact with my community? And then, of course, also all the data management structure. How do I deal with the data of my community? Those are, in fact, the three basic elements to cover to start off building a great community: identity, experience, and structure.
Doctor, I always says that human beings, we have different dictionaries, and doesn't have to do with what is your primary language, it has to do with your background, with your studies, what you're working with, the people you surround yourself. Maybe community for America can be the community where you live on. It can be a private community. The place where I live is a community. My friends are a community, and the people that I work with is another community. When you define the concept of the community you're building, what is the concept in your dictionary when you're talking about community, so we can get everybody on the same page?
Yes, definitely. That's a very good question. In fact, you can define a community as a group of people who share common interests, have common goals, and are committed to common values, right? So the expression common is pretty obvious here. And many people also ask me, like, when does a community start and when isn't it a community anymore? I always say that a community should have a purpose, which is very important, because people join a community for different reasons, right? And you pointed it out correctly. There are different types of communities. There can be a public community, there can be a brand community, a customer community, employee community, and also so-called communities of practice, right? Most of the time, I'm dealing with my clients with brand communities and customer communities, because here it's all about how do I build a community around my products and services. And that's in fact the focus that I have. And what you just mentioned is all about purpose, right? What is the purpose of joining a community? Is it based because we have the same geographic boundaries? Is it based because we have the same interests? Is it based because we come together in terms of an initiative, like we experienced it several times during the COVID-19 pandemic? So it also depends which purpose do I have to join a community. And my focus is on customer and brand communities.
How you find your tribe? How you find your community? What is the step that you need to, like, okay, I want to build, now that we have the concept of what is a community, how you need to build it. But the point is, where I found the golden goose, how I found my community.
Exactly. So in fact, when you have defined what you stand for, what the purpose is, I always tell people, ask yourself really, truly, why would people in fact join my community? And they would join it because they feel that if they join your community, they are better off within the community than they were alone, right? And you have to give them a strong case to be willing to, for example, follow your mission, or to be very enthusiastic about your product and about your services. So I always say, like, I have my three jokers that I say are very useful in fact attracting a great community. Well, the starting point is when you want to start it online, to first of all say, like, okay, people who might be willing to join my community, where can I find them, right? And what's the reason for them to join? What can they expect within my community, being part of the community, right? So when we go back to the connection between community and being a personal brand, I'm talking about three jokers to leverage here. So one joker is, first of all, you need to humanize your brand, which is very important, right? So we have prominent examples, like, for example, Apple. So people don't just buy an Apple iPhone or smartphone, in fact, because Yes, because it's like a device for them, but it's like a real
The
family.
concept to belong. It happened to me that I have friends who only buy Apple iPad, Apple Mac, and they get really pissed off with me. Like, I don't have any Apple except my iPad. I'm like, oh my God, you don't know what you're missing. Like, what I'm missing. We are a community. Like, we are the Apple guys. And I don't get the concept. To me, it's just a computer or a cell phone. But now you're talking about, like, it's true. Steve Jobs create a community of people. He even though create a visual aid of a community, how he dressed. He actually, a lot of people use the stipple he used to use, how he launched the products. He make a tribe. Like, I think it's like a religion. Doesn't matter. He's not here anymore, but his legacy is still happening.
Yes, definitely. That's why I love this expression. It's truly a religion. And all the so-called Apple fans are called evangelists, right? So what he did, in fact, was right from the beginning, he empowered people or its customers to think differently. So he was targeting a specific group of people, and he inspired them to do things in a unique and creative way, right? So what they also did pretty well, they involved their customers into the product development process. So each time they are launching a new product, be sure that the evangelists have been part of it, right? Not only part of the marketing branding process, but also part of the development process, right?
Do you think in the case of Apple was a strategy to, because I want to belong to something that I feel part of. Like, I want to eat a cake if I was at least the person, or even though buy any of the products, or ask for the cake, or was part of at least checking the oven. So do you think that was a strategy from Apple and says, I'm going to make you feel that you was important in the process, you want to belong to this tribe and this community?
Absolutely, absolutely. So you're also giving me somehow the pinpoint to the second joker. In fact, that's what he did. Like, you are part of a family, right? If you are buying Apple products, it's not a device, it's not a tool, not a system. It's part of your lifestyle, right? So that's what they convey through all their marketing messages, throughout all their campaigns. They've been running campaigns like youth programs where they've been fostering young children or young adults to try out different things. They've been running technical events, and they even built in some locations in the US, retail locations, so-called town squares, right? So it's open 24 hours. You can use free Wi-Fi. You can get in touch with like-minded people who are also very enthusiastic about Apple, right? So they build a whole engaged community that feels very much attached to their product and services they are offering.
So what is the third joke?
Exactly. The second joker is, in fact, that you should be loving and honoring your fans. And a very good example of doing so is Nike. What do they do when you look at their marketing campaigns, right? I have to say, in the past, they pretty much did it with celebrity athletes that are very famous, such as Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, or Serena Williams. They've been running a campaign lately. But what are they trying to do now is more heading towards real people and real sports that everyone does nowadays. And I think that the campaigns that they've been running during COVID-19, depicting just normal people like you and me, how they're practicing in their kitchen, in their basement, in their living room, and really celebrating those people and putting them in the forefront. So at Nike, it's all about appreciation, right? Honoring them, honoring their customers, their fans, but also all about gratitude, right? There was one example on Instagram where they reached 1 million followers, and they had 6 million pictures with a hashtag of Nike. So what did they do? They selected 10 of the most impressive Instagram shots from their customers, and they've been thanking those followers and fans and celebrating together with them, right?
It was a brilliant campaign, because you have like 6 million people fighting to be appearing. So now you have 6 million replicators of your brand.
Yeah.
So it's the cheaper, more intelligent way to do an advertising. It always says it's not how much money you have, it's how much you use the brain matter you have in your head.
Absolutely. And I can't point it out often enough. Your company doesn't belong to you. It belongs to your community. And in fact, that's what Nike has proven. The milestones that they have reached was not about Nike. It was about their community, their fans and followers, right? So they put them in the forefront, thanking them and encouraging them to be part of the celebration. So that's, in fact, something that each of us can do, right? So what is an event that you could use for your company or brand? Maybe it's a special occasion, it's a holiday, or it's a new product. You can also do it. You don't need to be a Nike to honor and love your fans and show them your appreciation and gratitude.
So what is the third point?
Well, the third point is so-called social listening, right? I don't know if you came across this expression, but it's getting more and more trendy, and it's emerging. Because in fact, what I also noticed from my experience and while talking to my clients, we all try to put out there our content and talk to the people, but why don't we also listen to our customers? There are so-called strategies where you just spend like days and weeks listening to your customer, being where he is, like understanding what he talks about, what kind of pain points he has, right? So social listening is very, very important. There are different emerging tools to get a glimpse of what your customer is in fact interested in. And in fact, when you are throwing out content, for example, on social media, it's just a static point, but you got to be dynamic. Because you, for example, Susan, you can be right now the happy Susan doing this interview with me, but 1 hour later, you're probably the tired Susan after a long, exhausting day, right? And tomorrow morning, you're the energized Susan. So with social selling, you can somehow capture a certain trend, the identity of Susan, which is not only one situation, but your many different situations. And that's what you can do with social listening, right? And well, in fact, it leads you to, I could say, like 2 or 3 major results. One being, for example, you know exactly at the right time what your customer needs. Then you can also see what kind of campaigns worked out, where you failed, where you have been successful. You can also discover or identify potential influencers for your product and for your brands. And if you want to, may I give you an example? Yeah. For example, we had, you know, this sneaker manufacturer, Vans, Vans, exactly so.
I have one of those.
Yeah, great. And that's so interesting what they did. They did for a couple of weeks social listening to understand the customers better. And guess what they find out? That most of their fans at a certain age range were Harry Potter fans. So what did they do? They cooperated with Harry Potter and did a limited edition of Harry Potter pictures and logos on their Vans shoes, right? To attract, in fact, those kind of customers. And they also identify the right influencers to support them in their campaign.
I have only one question, because now I have so many things on their head, and I think I'm going to compromise you on camera to do a complete webinar, because I know there are going to come a lot of questions about this, because even though people that I know that have certain expertise and the media marketing are kind of like where we're running from here, it's I saw a lot of people that were rigid in one box, humanizing their appearance, showing mistakes, not getting videos in a perfect way, and showing almost bloopers about their own things. Do you think that we have a tendency that we need to see people and brands more humanized than before?
Definitely. I think that's the precondition, right? And I feel like the mistake that we've been doing now in marketing for centuries, like putting people into target groups, right? That's in fact what I just explained to you, because you are many different personalities. You have your unique identity. You can't be put into a certain, how do you say it in English? I think cupboard, or in a specific box somehow. So I think that people are always talking about, okay, we need authenticity, we need reach. And I say, like, forget about reach. It doesn't matter. Like, I don't know if you know this example with the egg on Instagram that got over 44 million likes. There was a company who were just trying to do a test, right? And they said, like, okay, we'll just show a picture of a simple normal egg that you would eat during breakfast, right? And they just said, like, let us test if this egg could actually get enough reach. And it turned out that it got 44 million likes, right? And so they proved, and it says everything. It says that reach is not everything, because in fact, what did they gain from it? Nothing, because it was just a simple egg, a picture of an egg. They didn't sell anything. They didn't attract any customers. It was just like liking this egg. And may I ask you a question, Susan?
Yes.
Maybe you know it. What would you say, like, what kind of pictures are the most popular pictures or mostly liked pictures in the internet?
Babies and puppies.
Number one, you're pretty good. Number two, number one, cats. Cat pictures and cat videos.
Oh, well, I do have two cats, and I post sometime in my personal Facebook picture about my cats. Like, and by the way, in most of my Ask the Experts and videos, you can see one of my cats walking in front of the camera or sitting next to me. I even though I did a podcast when one of the cats, my black cat, stand next to me and was looking on the camera and started looking on the people, and they decide to do that, use that as a promotional, because it was really nice. So first of all is pet. Number one is cat videos, and number two is
very
pet.
Specifically, it's cats. In fact, very not only animal as a whole, but specifically cats. Don't ask me why, but it has been the result of many studies and research that number one. So maybe you should be taking more pictures of your cats. In fact, right? And
actually, they're part of all my videos. I have people who says your cat wasn't in this video, wasn't in this approach. Like, okay, it's not about the cat. Now I get why people love, oh my God, your cat is on the video. Like, yeah, don't lose the focus of the conversation.
Yes, exactly. Yes. In fact, so what I'm trying to say is, like, your cat might be adorable, very sweet, but in fact, you're not selling your cat. You know what I mean? You have the traction, you have the reach, you have the likes, but in fact, does it convert into leads? And that's where we have to put the difference between, is it important to have this reach, or is it more important to have to target the real customers that I can actually convert into clients, and they don't necessarily need to be 44 millions, because those 44 millions won't buy anything from me, right? But rather try to find the 400 people who might be interested in your services, right? And there you can't put them into milieus or into target groups, because each of them has a certain identity. And here again, social listening comes into place.
I don't know if you're familiarized, so we can wrap it up, because again, I'm going to call you for a webinar because now my mind is going crazy. I did a webinar
on this topic. Yes,
yeah.
I had last one on community building, and in 2 weeks they said, like, come again, we need some more also on community engagement, because those are two different stuff. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we're gonna call it. I did a webinar called the Influencers, Influence and Cult Effect. And I started my webinar showing the case of Ariana Renee, who was this 18 years old girl in Florida who was supposed to have 2.7 to 2.8 million followers. And when a clothing company approached to her and says, okay, we're gonna, before, because it's been happening really often that people doesn't have the followers they say they have, they buy the followers. And they says, okay, we're gonna give you 36 t-shirts to sell. If you sell them in 2 weeks, we're gonna sign a huge contract with you. She did the promotional, she did the campaign, she called their friends, they take picture with the t-shirt. You know what happened? She didn't sell either one in 2 weeks.
Okay.
So you have 2.7 million followers and they're not converting that and monetizing. Does your community work, or it's like a big fog? We have a small community, but we have a community who participate every day. They're sending private messages or they openly, and they're resharing. It says, I like my community small because I can be more interactive, and I like to keep it that way. So your point is really important. It's not how big is the community, it's how much the participation and the belonging concept on that exists.
Absolutely.
Dr. Kilubi, I would love to keep talking. We reached the time that we know that our community reached the span time. That's Angela span. So we know our community. We know that. So, but we're going to talk outside camera because now my head is flipping. And when that happened, it's my team says it's danger because that's where the big compromising and big classes and ideas coming. So I'm going to have you back. Thank you very much for your time because I know the different time zone is really big. So thank you for being with us.